The difficulty is, with all of this humanism stuff, you've really got to know what you're talking about. You've really got to look into that which you are. And you do this via psychology. You become your own psychoanalyst. There's no other way around it, unless you want somebody else to tell you what you are. And that's never a good policy to adopt. You can go to a shrink and they can tell you this. You can go to another shrink and they can tell you that. Oh, you've got issues about this, or you've got issues about that. You work out what your own issues are. You know where you've come from. You know how you suffered. You know all of your life's history. And so on the basis of that, you've got good grounds then to start to try to work some stuff out. And so when you read psychology, and it's not even one of these stupid courses that you'll get through university. They don't teach you about real psychology. They'll teach you about a load of bullshit. If you want to know about real psychology, then you have to read the greats. You have to read everything that Jung has produced, everything that Freud has produced, everything that Adler's produced, everything that Fritz Perls has produced, everything that on and on and on. All of these psychologists that have written, and then go into the philosophy, because the philosophy will enable you to look at many different things in many different ways. And somewhere down the line in that journey, you'll lose the vast majority of your biases. You will lose the vast majority of your preconceived perceptions on life. Because what you'll be doing is, you'll be breaking yourself down, dismantling yourself back down to ground zero. And you'll be starting again to look at what you are, because what you thought you were was just an illusion. And it is an illusion, and that's the thing. And so when people are looking, like at my videos, I try to do some sort of a survey, and I appeal to people to tell me how many of them have studied psychology, how many of you have read philosophy. Because if you haven't studied deep psychology, and if you haven't immersed yourself in philosophy, you're never going to get what I'm saying. You're going to be looking at me and thinking, Alan's fucked up. The world is fucked up. The human being is fucked up. It's proper fucked up. This thing in here is proper fucked up. Yes. That thing out there is proper fucked up. Because every single avenue that you go to try and find truth, you come to a whole myriad of deception, paradox and non-truth, till in the end you give up down that road, you give up down that road, you give up down that road, and by the time you've done 1,000 roads, you sit back and you go, holy shit, there is no truth, people, save for that which you are. Consciousness, that's the only truth. That's the only thing Descartes could depend upon when he set out. Psychologist of 1650, René Descartes, French bloke, he decided one day that he wants to find out if there's any reality. And he started to look at himself, and he started to look at the world, and he looked long and he looked hard. And what he concluded was one thing. He thought, therefore he was. Because he had the ability to think, then he concluded then he must be something. But he couldn't depend on his vision, he couldn't depend on his hearing, he couldn't depend on any of his senses, other than that awareness that's going on. But then you see, when you look over to the east to try to find what they wanted to discover, they discovered something else. And what they said was, when you don't think, that's when you are. And that's much closer to the reality. You see, over in the West, it's all about thinking, the Industrial Revolution and producing and all this sort of stuff, and science. Whereas over in the East, they've spent thousands and thousands of years just pondering, observing this and this, and all that around, and questioning. They've not been looking at chemicals, and they've not been doing experiments, they've just been thinking. And so, when they've been doing this thinking, they discovered meditation. And when they discovered meditation, they discovered astral projection. And then also they discovered lucid dreaming. And then they've discovered many phenomena about the human being that scientists haven't got a clue at, because you can't put it in a petri dish. They know nothing about the real world. They just know about the matrixial, illusory world, you see. And so, the Buddhist said, when you don't think, that's when you are. What does that mean? It means when you're on a deep meditation and you don't have any awareness of the world or your body at all. You are not thinking at all. You are just in the awareness. When you're in that awareness, it's this arena which seems somehow to be filled with everything. Only there's nothing there. It appears to be vacuous. Your mind, which you think is in your brain, expands to the length and breadth of the universe. And it encompasses everything. You go inside the eternal consciousness, and you know that that's your true nature. And then you come back to this world with a bump, you open your eyes into this illusion, and there's nothing that you can depend upon. Nothing at all. And so, this is the level of study that I have done. And these are the things that I'm trying to convey. And if you haven't travelled anything like the path I've travelled, then it's just like listening to stories, as far as you're concerned, because you'll never grasp it. And this is why I always say that you have to have experience. You have to have done all this stuff to be able to know firsthand. There's no point. Reading is of a benefit to acquire knowledge, because you acquire the knowledge of all the people that have travelled various paths. And so you can go, aha, aha, aha. But you can never go, aha, 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 unless you're doing the work yourself. You're travelling the path yourself. You are having the experience yourself. You're putting the time into it. Years, a lifetime, forever, it never ends. You put that into it, and little by little, then you can start to know what they say has a veracity to it. Because you can then depend on your subjective experience. When people are looking at me or anybody else, if they have not had this level of experience, all they're going to be doing is judging you, me, via their programs, via their biases. And when I say stuff to get through to you and you don't like it, so then you project onto me that you don't like me. Wrong thing to do. If you are feeling offended about the things I say, it's because I've touched something in you that deep down you know to be true. But the ego wants to deny it. That's not true. He's lying. I hate him. I hate it when he's like this. Why? What have I said? What have I touched upon? This is why I've always welcomed anybody to say whatever you want about me. I'll listen to it. I'll think about it. I'll reason with it. I'll accept some of it, and I'll reject some of it. I'll learn from some of it, and I won't learn from some of it. But if we keep open then that's when we're going to have the opportunity to learn. And every time we're offended, it's just because we've got certain programs. People, things and scenarios have told the ego, I don't like that. Why don't you like it, ego? You're a fool, you know? This is how you have to speak to the ego. You have to go, ego, mostly you're a fool. Because you've got all these misconceptions and preconceptions and biases going on. Because you're about your own self-preservation. Because somehow this ego, like a parasite it appears, has attached to this human body and become the operating system over and above that of the heart. You see? That's over and above that of instinct. And so you can forgive the ego for a certain facet of it because it's naive. What it does is it looks around, and it's on red alert all the time. It's all about self-preservation, self-preservation. It's never got over that. It needs to have this self-preservation, you see. And we think that that's it. Some instances, of course, the ego's self-preservation is valid. But what we have to do, we have to override the instinctual thing of the ego with a rational mind. It's a bit like if we see a snake, snake! Throughout millennia, the ego has been embodied with a fear for snakes. But what we do is thinking people, we look at the snake and we go, hang on, is there a requirement for me to be afraid of that snake? Is it venomous? First of all, what do I know about snakes? If I don't know anything about snakes, then it's wise that I avoid it. I don't need to be afraid of it. I don't need to start sweating. I don't need to run a mile. I just need to be aware and think, well, until I know something about that snake, I'm going to be in avoidance of it. You see, this is what we have to do all the time with everything. We have to assess everything at every given moment of the day. If we walk through our lives and we approach every scenario as if it's the first time, then we won't be carrying all of our biases with us. If we don't approach a scenario as if it's the first time, then we won't have the level of awareness, because the ego will take over and it'll go, I know about this, this is this and that's that. And it's assuming that it knows. And so you'll be settled then with the assumptions that the ego is putting forward. You go, okay, I know this and I know that. And you'll never look at anything else. You'll never learn anything else. You'll never discover anything else. And this is the whole thing, you see, about when you become a practiced meditator. You set the ego aside and the ego becomes diminished. Oh, it hasn't in you, Aaron. We'll get to that. The ego becomes diminished in that it isn't always at the forefront of your mind. You calm it down and you walk around this world with a calmness and an openness, and the internal dialogue is almost diminished. And so what you do is then you're looking at the world as if through a child's eyes. And when you do that, you notice much, much more. Because if the ego's driving you, the ego thinks it's seen it all before. There's nothing interesting there, nothing interesting there. I want to do this, I want to do that. And this is how most people live their lives, isn't it? Always projecting themselves into some sort of objective that they've got. Objective. They want to go here, they want to go do that. And then they'll go through a whole country without ever seeing any of it. Because they think whatever they're going for is over there somewhere. Looking for this, which is going to be satiating them. But if they stopped for a moment and felt, what do I feel like? I feel really calm. It's a beautiful thing. What am I thinking about? I'm thinking about nothing other than the words that are coming forward. And it's kind of like I don't even have to think about the words. They come like they're being channeled. I'm not thinking, oh, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? You see, I'm speaking so fluidly, I can do it forever and ever and ever. Seems to me the brain isn't doing this. Something else is doing this. Something else is what's driving me along. Getting back to people then thinking that, oh, Aaron's so egotistical. Look, there's certain things I've made realisations about in my life and about me. And I've looked at myself and I look around, and in the whole wide world, I've never seen anybody that I'd rather be. Can you say that? Can you say that you have never ever seen anybody, doesn't matter how rich or famous or powerful, that you'd rather be than you? It's never been the case with me. I've often thought about the life of Brad Pitt and all these famous film stars and this, that and the other, and I've resigned that no way would I want to swap their lives for mine. For many reasons. And so I'm content with what I am. Whatever my ego is, it serves me. And if on occasion it doesn't enable me to make a connection with other people, then that's serving me also. Because it's repelling certain people, because they're not going to be conducive with my ego, you see. They're not going to be conducive to how I am deep down. So therefore, if I have an ego which is profound and it's all about me, then people will look at me and think, like, oh, he's not my sort of guy. You know, I wouldn't get on with him. Okay, great. That's saved us time and effort, hasn't it? You see, it's a bit like when you look at a bumblebee with the red and black stripes on it. Well, anything in nature which has great colour like that in an animal is generally for a reason. It's kind of like, stay away from them, or be cautious of them. Get to know them, yeah, because they're a wonderful creature, but don't be making assumptions about them. And tread a bit carefully, be cautious, you see. So this is the thing. And so with my essence of what I am, I'm open. And when people are within my presence for a few hours, they can pretty well see what I am. I'm not hiding no shit. I'm not ashamed of anything. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not disgusted by anything. It's all out. What you see is what you get. You would think there'd be a market for that. You would think it'd be bigger than it actually is. But people like me scare people. The reason why is because they don't have the inner strength to be able to be as free as I am. They've got all this stuff inside. They've got insecurities, lack of knowledge and lack of wisdom and lack of strength and all this sort of thing. And so to be around somebody like me is a challenge. But you see, I'm giving people the challenge. I've give, let's say, 15,000 subscribers the challenge. Do you want to get to know me? Do you think you could be friends with me? This many have took the challenge. But this is it, you see. It's a numbers game. The numbers are always small. And so I'm happy with that. But I'll keep going to see if there's another handful to come out of it within the next 5 years. Some deep, meaningful relationships. People who have watched me for a long time and have made up their minds. I could get along with him, and I'm pretty sure he could get along with me, because we're very similar, you see. So this is why I'm doing what I do. And so I hope that's answered some of your questions. If you've got any more, feel free. Got any questions? Anybody got any questions?